Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour.
Well, Pedro Grifol is out as the manager of the White Sox, and in typical White Sox fashion, they have not named an interim manager. So I believe they're just going to do a lottery over at U.S. Cellular Field, and it's the fan of the night that gets to do this. The White Sox are 28-89. Remember, they not only had a 21-game losing streak, which they snapped. They beat the A's 5-1. But they also had a 14-game losing streak before that. Now, for everybody who thinks the White Sox in this decade have been a disaster, you are wrong. Right? That's an assumption. Remember, the White Sox made the playoffs in 2020. They won the American League Central in 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, who was the manager? Tony La Russa.
Yep.
La Russa then stepped down late in 2022 for health reasons with an 81-81 record. They ended up going 81-81, 500. But they have been a disaster since.
Yeah.
They've made trades. Aaron Bummer, Gregory Santos traded away in the offseason. Dylan Cease dealt to San Diego in March. Luis Robert, Johan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, all have had significant injuries this season.
Yeah, is now an Oriole.
Okay. So Andrew Vaughn, first baseman, third overall pick in the 2019 draft, has not played well. Andrew Benintendi, 5 years, $75 million contract, has not played well. Garrett Crochet has been really good. When Roberts has been out there, he's been good, but they took Jimenez and they dealt him to Baltimore. Tanner Banks was dealt to Philadelphia. Paul DeJong was dealt to Kansas City. They also took, I think, Tommy Pham, and they dealt him back to St. Louis. So it's going to be their 6th 100-loss season when it's all said and done. And the first time it's happened in consecutive years, he's been the manager in the 2 years. Now, he's also had a lot of bad luck around him, but they are he's fired. But again, the White Sox made the playoffs in 20, won the American League Central in 21, and were a 500 team in 22. So it has not been, in this decade, a complete disaster, even though Tony La Russa was criticized at every turn about what he was doing. I'm not saying everything he did was right. Not everything was conventional. But there are certain people in life that have forgotten more about the game than the people criticizing them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So they fired him. Now let's get to Jim Harbaugh. This is comical in so many ways. He gets a 4-year show cause penalty for a guy that has a long-term contract in the National Football League. It's irrelevant. What? In 4 years, he's not going to be coaching the Chargers? They put too much money, time, and effort into him.
Absolutely.
He'll be in 4 years coaching the Chargers. He's just going to be sitting there going, "What?"
I felt the same way.
That means nothing.
No.
Okay, it's so easy to do something like that
after the fact,
right? After the fact, where it doesn't send a message. So you get a 4-year show cause penalty. Great. Well, guess what? I mean, Pete Carroll probably would have too at USC, but he was already with Seattle. It's like you just sit back and just shake your head like that's not. And this Connor Stallions, I guess, is going to have some special on Netflix. Talking about what? First of all, he's not going to give up anything at Michigan. I mean, despite everything, he is as loyal gets.
Sure.
I mean, you got who's going to watch that? I mean, a media person's going to be forced to watch it because just in case something comes out. But as a fan, what do you want? What the heck? Yeah. So let's at least delve into this for a moment. We all know that going back to the beginning of time of college football, and Dave Revson, and I had a great talk with Dave the other day.
One of the best.
He's just a great guy. We're talking,
Absolutely.
And people are like, what are you guys talking about? We're talking about family. We're talking about, his daughter just got a job. His other two are still in school. We're talking about things like that. Right? Dave wrote a book. And it delves into the early days of college football. And when we had Dave on to talk about the book, we got into the discussion that in reality, when you read the book, nothing's changed. People were skirting rules in the 1800s into the early 1900s because of the desire to win. So now we're at a situation like this with Michigan. And this is a compound deal with Michigan, because this part here that they're still investigating, they're still not up to the sign stealing deal yet. A lot of this has been dealing with the answers or the lack or the fact that they were not forthcoming, especially Harbaugh, with what was going on with recruiting during COVID. And now you got this. And once again, what's the key to the sign stealing part? It's not knowing what the signs are in the fourth quarter. You have people in the box watching the other side to see if they can pick up something all game long. Well, when's the part of the game that you wouldn't know anything unless you had advance on it? The first quarter. And Michigan outscored their opponents 137-36 in the first quarter. Now, there are three reasons for it. One, they're very talented. Two, to their credit, they were well coached. All right? I mean, you can't miss as few tackles as they did if they weren't a well-coached unit. And three, they had the advantage of an excellent idea of what you were going to do. So now let's take it one step further. Again, I feel like I don't understand why I don't hear people talking about this. I've never heard anybody talk about how important the first quarter was in sign stealing. Not once. Do you watch the game, follow the game, understand the game? Which now brings us to the second part, which I've never heard anybody talk about. One of the keys is playing with the lead. Which team in college football the last 2 years was explicitly built to have the ability to play with the lead? Michigan. Big offensive lines, big-time running games, good defense, quarterback doesn't take any chances. Michigan was the kind of team we said over and over again, you want to play with the lead against them because I'm not so sure they can come from behind. Because when did Michigan come from behind in games? Which games were they coming from behind in the fourth quarter? No, they were in front. And they were playing with the lead game after game after game because, again, they're talented. They were well coached, but they also had some advantages. I mean, they weren't in any adversity in the fourth quarter. Really? Because they were playing with the lead. Well, how'd they get to the lead? By the three factors I talked about. And that's why, but if you ask a Michigan fan about it, well, we're fine. They don't care. All they care about is that they won. And you'll find that with every fan base across the country. And I mean every fan base. All right? You're going to have a segment of every fan base. A segment. Not saying every one of them, but a segment of every fan base that does not really care how you got there. They just want to see the W's. It's just, I said a segment. I didn't say every single fan. You have a segment of every fan base that thinks that whatever it takes, just do it. I don't care. I just want to see wins. And that's not right.
No. The unfortunate part in college football, and this is not absolutely not everybody, there are high-profile coaches that at times think that way.
Yes.
And that makes it even worse. I don't think there's any question about that.
There is, but there's also the other, let's do another side element with that. There's also so much external pressure to win.
Yeah. Sure there is.
That it may take somebody who really does have scruples to sit back. Let's go, if you ever saw the movie Blue Chips.
Right. Nick Nolte. Yep.
Nick Nolte was supposedly a guy that by the book, by the rules, by the book, by the rules, all the way through. And then finally they're telling him, hey, look, you don't start winning. So he goes out and he gets, we'll just go by who the actual people are. He goes out and gets Shaquille O'Neal. Right? And there was a bunch of offers and things like that. The car, money. He gets Penny Hardaway, car, money. The Indiana player.
Yeah.
Who got a tractor out of it. Played college basketball for Indiana. It wasn't Evans. But he gets it for a tractor. Okay? And he's a good shooter, if I remember. And they start winning. The Dolphins start winning games. And he just feels scummy about it the entire time. And he's going along and he's like, they're winning, but he's the one not enjoying it because it goes against everything that he wants. And I think there were a couple of other players that recruited in there that were done through booster benefits. And I know it's just a movie, but believe me, there are some college coaches right now that have been, over time, felt like, okay, look, I'll just look the other way. Do what you got to do. Right? I don't want to know. And it's not comfortable for them. But in order to keep their job, all right. So I'll give you a disciplinary question. Mike Rhodes the other day after practice was asking all of us about. He says, look, no right or wrong answers here. No right or wrong answers. You miss a class, what's the penalty? And when he got to me, I said, miss a class, miss a game. He goes, whoa. And Jimmy Martelli looks over and goes, old school. He said, what if you're late for a class? I said, under 16 timeout, then you enter the game, you don't start. Right? Yeah. He says, well, Steve, what if it gets to the point where somebody misses 5 to 7 games? This is no right or wrong answer.
Right.
Here. This is like, okay, that's a really fair question. I said, in all likelihood, I'll get fired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
There's no question. And that's.
I said, and they said now the question would have to be, Mike, whether I would die on the hill on that kind of conviction.
What he believes right.
And I said, the reason I feel the way I do is that 98% of them are not going to be professionals. I'm trying to impart, especially early in their career.
Absolutely.
Go to class. You need your degree. Right? And a couple of players said, I actually can see that. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to be late for class. Now, if you're sick, right?
Yeah.
But
this is for no excuse.
Right. Yeah, but yeah. I said, yes. I said, but you have a trainer for that.
Right.
Okay? If they're informing the trainer they're sick, which means they need treatment, okay? I said, it's not a steadfast thing. I said, you got to, absolutely. Right? But if they're like, the class is 11 o'clock and at 10:59 I'm sick, like, what are you talking about? Get to class. Nope. Right? Now, I'm the only one that said that. I would also like to point out that in today's world, what I said would never work. In today's world, what I said would never work. So I would have to modify my stance on that. But I was talking idealistically. Realistically, I could never do that. It would have to be, hey, look, get on the VersaClimber. Hey, look over, run some laps, right? Come in at 5 a.m. and do dawn patrol, something like that. You'd have to do something disciplinary besides missing games, right? But idealistically, that's how I feel. And so then the players asked me, when I went to school, how many classes did I miss? When I was at Penn State, I said none. I said I never missed a class. I said, did I feel great every day? No. Was I tired some days? Yeah. But I never did. Now, I know that's an exception. It's 3.5 years of not missing the dang thing. Because I graduated in 3.5 years. I didn't have to go the last part because I even had 7 more credits than I needed. I had to take an extra class. That really bugged me. I have more. I have more credits than I needed. I got such bad advice from my advisor. We had to have something called other cultures.
Yep, almost similar to what I had to have.
Right.
It was like a GI or something. It was labeled for me. Yep, same thing.
I took religions.
Would have been done, but had to have that even though.
So I took religions of the East. Yep. That qualified, but I needed 3 more credits. Well, I followed that up after taking religions of the East. I took religions of the West. Figured we'd just get it all done at once.
There you go.
Right? Nope, that didn't qualify as other cultures. I said there are other cultures and religions of the West.
Yeah.
Nope, doesn't qualify. This is going into my last semester.
And they're telling you what you didn't have.
I said, what are you talking about? So I had to take history of the Middle East. Like, what the heck? I don't want to do this. All right? I got it. They're a mess. I feel better. Right? I kind of resented it because I only took the other one because I was told it qualified. I was told it qualified.
Literally, and that's it.
Right?
I've had the same issues.
But back to like being an idealist versus a realist. Realistically, I'd have to change.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'd have to change. How do I, let's face it, I've got to do things that are good for them, but also allow me to keep my job. Right? Yeah. Now the question is, when it comes to how do you then handle the cheating part of it? Now, there's some stuff where coaches don't know.
Sure.
Okay. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. There are times that coaches don't know what somebody outside the program is doing. And I think it's a little more difficult now to get a feel for it because of NIL. I mean, the rules are exponentially looser than they were. But, for example, what they did with recruiting, there were specific rules during COVID, which it is alleged that Michigan broke. Because, look, Michigan was in bad straits. At the end of 2020, Harbaugh's on the verge of being fired. We talk about, they always beat Penn State. No, they weren't always beating Penn State. Penn State, at the end of 2020, had beaten Michigan 3 out of 4 years. Okay? Then after the shenanigans started, because it started in 21.
21, yep.
That's when they won 3 in a row.
Yep.
Really?
Same with the folks in Columbus.
Yep. Kind of an amazing coincidence.
Yep.
And the older players on that team that stayed at Michigan were recruited during that 2020 COVID time. Really?
Yep.
Yet if you ask a Michigan fan, I don't care. Hey, whatever it took. Really?
Or defend it in another way. Like, it didn't really help that much. Well, it obviously did.
No, it helped a lot. You were losing every year to Ohio State, and you lost 3 out of 4 years to Penn State.
Yep. You're a baseball player, take steroids. You go from 12 home runs to 51.
Right.
I feel like something happened there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's now the question is, we all know it's happening in other places.
Absolutely. There's no question.
Now, here's a next one here. And this is interesting. Next year is the year that the payments from athletic departments to athletes begins. The Big Ten has to take an intelligent look at this. Title IX plays a role. But if I have $22 million, are you telling me the SEC is going to take $11 million and give it to female athletes and $11 million and give it to male athletes, which includes football? Or is football going to get 60% of the money? Oh, and by the way, the other, right, we'll just use $20 million. It's an easier number to go with. I'm going to give $12 million to football, and the other $8 million, I'm going to split up $4 million here, $4 million here. The Big Ten's got to be smart about this. You cannot lose in your, you can go through the adorable exercise of, look how great women's basketball is doing. It's doing great, but it loses money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm just talking about business here. I'm talking business. I'm not talking about how much you like a sport. That has nothing to do with it. I'm talking business right now. Okay? You don't run a business and look at the losing part of your business and go, hey, we'll give it more money and just have them lose more. No, that's not how it works. That's not how a business works. All right? Women's gymnastics. Jordan Childs is going to go to now UCLA. There are a lot of people saying, hey, because Suni Lee was at Auburn. Look now, hey, that could be one where it could be a moneymaker. Women's gymnastics is not going to be a moneymaker. It doesn't have a TV deal. It's what you need. Okay? I mean, you got to be realistic about what's going on here. You can't do this like, oh, yeah, it's starting. No, you can't. Right? And the SEC, by the way, gymnastics is a big deal. That's fine. But the SEC is not, you're not going to sit there in the SEC and say that the softball and women's gymnastics and women's basketball programs will get the same kind of cut as the football program. Are you kidding me? They're not going to do that. They've already told everybody in the world they're not going to do that. So you're the Big Ten. You have all these spots available in the college football playoff. Oh, and by the way, there are spots available in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Well, guess what the two of those have in common? They make money to pay for everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay? They make money to pay for everybody else. That is called investing in your moneymaker because it benefits everybody. So now the Big Ten has to make a decision as a conference. Do we adopt a model to figure out what the SEC is doing with theirs? Do you put yourself at a competitive disadvantage by not following their model? Because they're not going to sit there and go, you get 10 million, you get 10 million. Nope. The SEC is not going to do that. They're not going to do it. This is a big decision the conference has to make as to what to do with it. Title IX is going to play a role, right? No question. Should Title IX play a role? Absolutely. I'm not against Title IX, not in the least, right? But you got to be realistic as to what you do with your allocation within the realm of Title IX. Yeah. You want the long list of women's sports that exist because of football? Look at the entire list. That'll tell you what the list is. Okay? I'm not being cruel here.
No, it's reality.
This is called, okay, welcome to the real world. Okay? No business is run like college athletics. Ford, Lincoln, Mercury. What doesn't exist in 2024? Mercury. Why? They lost money. Ford and Lincoln made money. They stayed. Kind of an odd concept. That's how a business is run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? College sports is a business, but it's not run that way. And I'm glad that everybody gets these kind of opportunities because there are going to be big decisions that are made based on scholarship limits. They're all going, the only one that's going down is football. Oh, no, it's going from 85 to 105. No. Okay? It's going from about 124 down to 105. The difference is instead of having 39 walk-ons, 19 of them are going to go bye-bye. Never thought of it that way. Because you're allowed 105 in camp right now. But first day of classes, which is August 26th, they can expand the roster. And believe me, those players help.
Sure.
Right. But so you got all this going up. Now, just because you get, pick a number, you're Purdue wrestling. Okay. Not exactly, middle of the pack in the Big Ten is a wrestling program. You're going to give out 34 scholarships to Purdue wrestling? They wrestled Wisconsin last year. They drew 1,100 people. I think it was like 1,142 or something like that. Unless Penn State shows up or Iowa shows up, they're not getting a crowd. You're going to give out 34 scholarships? No, but they can give out 20 to 25. And make it work really well for themselves. But they're not going to, I can't picture them giving out 34.
No.
You're going to tell me Pitt baseball is going to give out 34 scholarships? They're going to struggle to be able to pay the $22 million. Now, they're going to struggle for it because their TV contract is okay, but we all know it's not great. Okay. Well, they can make up for it in attendance. No, they can't make up for it in attendance. No, that's not going to happen. And the ACC has hit kind of a rut with the NCAA basketball tournament. Pitt last year had a very good team. But they're looking to find ways right now as a basketball program to increase their strength of schedule because guess what? The ACC part does not. Okay? Doesn't do enough for them strength of schedule wise as a basketball program. That's what's amazing about the ACC's kind of hit a rut. And that's a problem. Because Pitt last year won 21 games, and you would think a program within the ACC that's a 21-game winner should be in great shape to get to the NCAAs, and Pitt didn't make it.
Nope.
Right? Now, do I think Pitt should have made it? Hey, I'd have to really go back and look at it. But they were a good team last year.
Yep.
No question. I'd have to go back and look and see who the other contenders were for the final 10 spots or whatever. But strength of schedule played a role, and the ACC did not give them enough strength of schedule to get over the top. So Pitt's been looking to find ways to strengthen their schedule, non-conference, because the ACC doesn't give them enough right now. See, so all these elements add up to less money. Remember, everybody's NCAA tournament distribution is going to be cut back a little bit too because of this settlement in the House case dealing with past athletes. So it's all coming in. So the Big Ten now has to take a long, hard look as a conference. Remember I was talking about ideals versus realism? And I talked about my idealistic view of what missing a class should mean? There's no way I could implement that. No way. Okay? Just because I feel that way doesn't mean it's what I would do. Because realistically, I could never implement that. I'd have to come up with something else that was more conducive to allowing playing time for the player while also meting out discipline. I'd have to be more realistic about it. Now let's get to the Big Ten when it comes to money. They got to be more realistic about what they're going to do with it because their primary competition is the SEC. Are they going to do it?
Yeah.
Really? Do you think Georgia is sitting there going, yeah? Where do you think most of the money's going? Well, Title IX will figure in with the rest of it.
Yeah.
And everybody's already complaining already that in the world of payments, Big East basketball programs on the basketball side have the potential of a huge advantage because guess what? They don't have to give any money to football. Villanova,
Yeah.
Georgetown,
Yep.
St. John's, Seton
yep.
Hall,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't have to give any money, right? Providence, nope, no need. We can take whatever we do, we can funnel it, big chunk toward hoops. But the Big Ten has to take a long look at what the SEC does. You cannot put yourself at a competitive disadvantage. If the SEC is going to do it in a certain way, you may modify it to fit something a little bit better for you, but you've got to be in the neighborhood of it. Oh, no, this is the right way to do it. Oh, guess what? They don't care. And then people will complain. I don't understand, after 2 years. I don't understand the SEC's got, because guess what? They kind of looked at it and went, we're going to do it this way. They've got to be able to take a long look at what the competition is doing, then modify it to what fits you.
Absolutely.
But keep yourself on the cul-de-sac, okay? You may be the second house in on the cul-de-sac and not the one at the very top, but you got to keep yourself there. You got to be in the neighborhood. Right. And I think that's something they have to take a long, hard look at just to make sure you're okay, right? To be competitive. And that's a decision that still is to be made. So it's a good time to talk about it is now, not after the fact. I mean, I'm talking about it in this show. Yeah. Because, again, as an audience, we're just trying to give you a primer of what to look for in the next few months because this is an all-new world.
Completely. Yeah, absolutely. And that world is, why I think everything ties together with this show. That world is why you cannot realistically, put down the hammer that you were putting down earlier with missing classes. And now you're looking at...
I couldn't...
No, you can't.
I'd be out of a job.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going with it.
I would also have revolt.
Yeah, exactly. At this point now in the college game, you may not even get the chance to show what your recruiting classes can do.
Right.
It's that expectation now is that much higher in the game where you may not get those couple of years.
Right.
The patience level is not necessarily there with the money that's involved in this sport at this point. We are now at the point these guys are. Yeah, it's a business, and it has become one of the biggest businesses in sports.
No question. And again, you've got to invest in what makes you money.
What makes you, absolutely.
Right? Doesn't mean you can't invest in women's volleyball. It doesn't mean you can't invest in women's basketball. It doesn't mean you can't, obviously, invest in wrestling. Wrestling does a lot for Penn State's image nationally. I mean, a tremendous amount. This place looks great because of wrestling and what Cale's done. And now he's run the program. No complaints here. I'm just talking about the dollars and cents, revenue versus expense, the business part of it. You've got to take a long, hard look at certain things, and you've got to see what the SEC is going to do. You can't let them get ahead of you on this.
No.
And I don't mean you make the first decision. This may be one where you've got several plans, and then, okay, which plan's the best one?
Which one's going to work best?
That then fits close to what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah, what fits close to what they're doing, what you're looking at. Well, it's sort of almost like you're in school where you're looking at the rough draft, and I think that's what the SEC is going to draw up. Basically, that's where you're going to look at it and say, okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like from that draft, and you implement what you think is going to work for you. Ultimately, it's we're in a custom world, so to speak, right now. I think this is where everybody gets the chance to customize to their liking. Yeah, no matter what it is, no matter what you're buying. And I think that's where, from a Big Ten perspective, that's what you have to do. Customize to your liking, but also to the liking of those you're serving.
You've got to keep yourself in the game and competitive.
100%. 100%.
Because, look, they've got 16 programs over there.
Yeah.
You've got 18. They got 16
yeah.
programs over there. Well, guess what? That's a lot of players. Okay? You're talking about 1,680 scholarships. 1,680 scholarships for football. For football. You can't let them monopolize the top 800 to 1,000 players because of money. You can't. When you have the power to distribute money within, because, Title IX is going to play a role. But, for example, I'll give you an example. Everyone thinks things are 50-50 all the time. Well, they are. Football does not really, it doesn't figure into the mix. You know what Penn State's distribution on athletes happens to be? 54% male, 46% female. Because, again, you've got one sport that has no female counterpart. And when you go through the new scholarship limits, the new roster limits, so we'll call them roster limits. The new roster limits, right? It's 15-15. It's, the numbers are all equal across the board except for men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse. No offense, that one baffled me. I didn't quite understand why there'd be more men's lacrosse on a roster versus women's lacrosse. But I'd have to look into that to see. That was the only one. But everything else is bang, 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 same, right across the board. Say if you have a university that has women's wrestling, you get 34 like the men's wrestling team does on your roster limit. Doesn't mean you're going to give them all out, but you're allowed to. The number's there. There's the same number for both. But football doesn't have that. Okay, so you're going back forth, women's soccer, men's soccer, right? Keep going back and forth on each one, men's track, women's track, okay? Cross country, right? Equal till you get to one sport. Football, 105. Women's sport, there is not one listed there because it doesn't exist. I think that opens the door for you to do a distribution commensurate with what it means to everybody else within your athletic department. Okay? There's idealism, as I pointed out with my stringent discipline, and there's realism.
Yeah.
Realistically, I could never do that. Well, idealistically, you'd like to see 50-50 no matter what. No, realistically, no. If I want to exist and perform well in everything, including football, I need football to be successful. I need to give them the best shot at it. I need men's basketball as a supplement to have the best shot at it. Not because it's, so much greater than women's basketball. It has nothing to do with it. The financial structure is different. Everybody benefits by money that's brought in by men's basketball. And I'm not talking about tickets in the Jordan Center. I'm talking about TV contracts, NCAA distribution, radio deals, sponsorships at the Big Ten tournament. Have you picked a day to get your hair cut, or are you just
I'm getting there. Yeah, getting there.
Yeah.
Got to get it before the season.
Which season? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. America worries about you
That's right.
on an everyday basis. All right. Hey, great job on the arc. We're going to need it tomorrow.
There you go.